So introduce. Well, you need to think of an introduction for these or something.
Hello, this is an introduction. I don't know, this is stuff we need to think of ahead of time.
Well, I told you to think about it for the last 3 times.
I'm thinking about the servant. I am not thinking about the theatrics of it all.
I don't know why you're not.
And there's more important things to think of. Like fate.
Is there like a gimmick for this servant or something you can open with? Write or do anything?
Well, he does have a...
Hey, I know how to open this one.
I think you had the same thought I did.
My name is Ozymandias.
I'm, slightly disturbed.
Why?
We're going to pretend that didn't happen, I think. We're doing Ozymandias this week, folks.
Writer, my lord, king of kings.
Whew! Alright, so... Ozymandias. Unfortunately, I'm not getting a reaction out of you for the image here because you've seen it, so let's just pull him up.
I do know what his normal art looks like. I don't know if he has any like special art or anything, or like the April Fools. I haven't seen those.
Well, I just looked up Ozymandias. I need to stop doing that.
Sorry, if you look up Ozymandias on my computer, it's going to take you to the 2 poems.
No, it did that to me earlier when I was doing some research as well, so...
Yeah.
Now, here's something fun. This is artwork that's not from Fate Grand Order. This is his Fate prototype artwork. So it's not one you've probably seen as much.
Hot! This is the Nendroid of him. This is the one this is the form that he has the Nendroid in, the one that I want to buy both of.
The stance.
Yes! One covered in jewels and one with the... I know what those things are called, and I cannot tell you what the name is now. The crook!
Is that the name of it?
His staff, crook. Because crook and flail is what they call him with the pharaohs. So it's a crook.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is actually probably his first artwork, because this is from a light novel series, so...
Beautiful.
This is probably him from a cover, or from a character page.
This is fitting of Ozymandias, King of Kings.
So Ozymandias is a character in Fate from... His first appearance was Fate Prototype Fragments of Silver Sky, I think the name is. We brought it up before in relation to Jekyll and Hyde.
Okay.
The same one that he was in. As well, he is in Fate Grand Order as a pretty major character in a couple of the chapters.
Oh, my love.
Alright, we got some Fate Grand Order art.
Yeah,
here.
I've seen that. I think that's my Twitter. Yeah. Like, this shit's like my Twitter image. Oh,
this
cute.
is fun. I'll explain this one a little bit later.
That's adorable. Ooh.
I'm just going to go through this here, because Ozymandias doesn't have other forms, unlike, say...
he doesn't have, like, an April Fool's?
So he does have one, and we'll get there
okay.
when we scroll there. I see it. Here he is.
That's amazing. I love that.
Alright, and this is just his actual card artwork here.
Okay, so, yeah, alright. So the one with him in the black shirt is my, I think that's my Twitter image. God, I love Ozymandias. King of Kings. Also, that beautiful, beautiful clip from that musical on YouTube. Insert clip here, Sekhie, in editing.
I hope you forget to do that, by the way. Just so you look like a dummy.
I'm absolutely not going to forget to do that.
So, let's go through this art, because I know you'll appreciate the different craft essence artwork here.
Yes, I will. I love Ozymandias. Ozymandias.
There he is there. In case you're curious. Or actually, you might... I think that's Jekyll and Hyde there.
It looks like
Actually, that might be Arthur. I think that's Arthur. Who you've also seen.
Yeah.
And I won't tell you who this guy in the background there is.
It looks like someone like a... Ooh.
Ozymandias and...
Wait, this is so cool.
Oh, I know who that is.
This is like T.H.E.
Yeah.
This is Sekhie. Also, one of the great things about Ozymandias is one of the names in antiquity for Ramses the Great, Ramses the Second.
We'll get there.
Oh, ooh, so this actually means something? Oh, look.
Here's the one I knew you'd appreciate.
Oh, me on a beach, except I don't show any skin because I'm white as fuck and I sparkle like a vampire. I can appreciate it, though.
See if I run out. Oh, there we go. I also was waiting for this one.
My name is Ozymandias.
See, Ozymandias, you guys are missing like an entire chapter here where I showed Sekhie that one song from the Camelot musical.
What does he say after my name is something about being King of Kings?
I am King of Kings. My name is Ozymandias. I don't remember the rest after
God,
that.
I will insert clip. This is beautiful. I love this.
It's going to be localized soon, or so the localizers say.
Yes. Yes.
More images. I'm taking special care to go through these because I figured you of all people are probably you're gonna appreciate this more.
Yeah, look, I am nothing if not a simp for my babies. This is a character. Ooh, nice. This is a character I will be very, very interested in getting in the D&D game when we get there. Like, I will be rabid about getting him. I will draw the entire pool myself to get him if I need to.
Unfortunately, I think he'll be competing with people because I know we have a Lancelot fan in there, in our game.
Yeah, but Realm knows that I will just give him Lancelot in return for having Ozymandias. Lancelot is not worth an Ozymandias. That is bullshit. He has the wrong priorities here.
Again, we'll get back to that.
Ramses the Great is so much better.
And we'll get back to that.
Nice. Oh, is
Oh, I remember that is.
I was gonna say, is that girl with him? Is that the thing about what's her face? That never mind.
We'll get there.
There's
we'll
like
get there.
another character that I know gets paired with him
All right, so
in some shit.
I guess in this case, since I've alluded to it a few times now in our images here, I should probably just start with the history.
Yes.
So yes, you are right. Ozymandias in this telling is also known as Ramses II, who,
King
based
of
on your
Kings.
reaction, I assume Ramses the Great.
He is Ramses the Great.
And this
yes.
is directly built into his story. Let's go back.
It's called the Ramesseum.
Let's go back to images here, because I think. Well, I don't have your reaction to Ozymandias.
Of course.
That's Nefertiti or Nefertiti.
Nefertiti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Moses.
That's interesting. Oh, what the fuck? I'm sorry, but Nefertiti should not be in the same time. There is like a gap between the two of them.
It's two alternative theories, though, about that. Because Moses, one of the theories about who his Egyptian pharaoh was based off of...
Ramses the Great.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Actually, that's the most likely, because Ramses the Great engaged in a lot of conquering across northern Egypt and southern Egypt and into the peninsula. But Nefertiti does not at all conclude with his timeline. In fact, Nefertiti is, I think, actually his great-great-great-granddaughter or something like that. Like, she is actually, I think she is actually descended from him, but far enough away that, like, she would have been, like, at least 100 years after him, I think.
Well, in Fate, Nefertiti is Ozymandias' wife.
Okay. Well, you don't have T.H.E in the game yet, so...
No.
Yeah, so that makes sense then, because Nefertiti is the wife of Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, who was once known as Amenhotep IV. Now, Amenhotep IV and Nefertiti are the most likely parents of Tutankhamun. And I think the two of them are descended from Ramses the Great and Queen T.H.E, who may be the red-haired lady, the mummy with natural red hair that was found intact. As I be maybe a little too into Egyptian history over here.
I am well aware.
Yeah.
Well, so, obviously, the story of Moses would have you believe that Moses and Ozymandias would be bitter rivals.
Mm-hmm.
Ozymandias, based off of materials I assume from the prototype light novel, actually by the end of it bore no real ill will towards Moses. It was more of a he couldn't let crime go unpunished kind of thing.
Okay.
And as for... It's a little hard to explain because to imply the story of Moses happened in Fate also in some ways implies the existence of God, but that gets a little bit it's iffy on how much God is actually in Fate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something I want to go into too much, but there's other stuff that Fate would substitute God for, that people explain away as God.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Let's see. So, yeah, and then you probably know the story, because they use the story of Moses as Ozymandias' primary character backstory.
Mm-hmm.
So, the plagues, and then...
Oh, no, I am a little off. I've mixed up 2 of the roughly 37 major pharaohs. I've mixed up 2. I'm a little off. In fact, there would have been a much greater gap between Nefertiti and Ramses the Great. Although I was right about the father. It was Amenhotep IV, then Amenhotep III, who married T. But Ramses the Great is much, much older than. I do sometimes mix the 2 of them up because actually they both sired lines that were quite interesting to follow through the dynasties. I mean, if you like following, Egyptian pharaonic dynastic lines down through the ages.
So I moved away from images here because this isn't... Because I obviously don't have like notes in front of me this time. Mm-hmm. And those are names.
Oh.
So I'll let you read off the name here, and then I'll explain what this is.
Ramesseum Tentyrus, or Tentyrus, depending on how they emphasize it.
So this one, effectively, he summons a big, a large. They put it here, a large temple complex.
Temple.
Yeah.
It's called the Ramesseum.
Yeah, and that thing is in Fate one of the stronger noble phantasms because it can I'll put it this way. Do you remember Artoria with her lance?
Yes.
That lance was listed as being one of the lances that at the ends of the earth. Mm-hmm. You probably know that concept in storytelling.
Of course.
That thing has a giant fuck you, being that is amongst the strongest attacks in Fate. This is able to withstand and counter it a bit. It's also able to break through some barrier kind of thing.
And also, now that I have experienced Iskandar in the D&D game, reality marbles are a part of my vocabulary.
You know what a reality marble is. Although you've seen Fate Zero, you've seen a reality marble in animation.
I don't remember Fate Zero.
You're worse off for it.
I don't. Oh, that's interesting. That's a nice little... So if you go up a little, it says the temple's external walls are covered by the Hittites' divine steel. It's interesting because one of the greatest conflicts that Ramses II fought was against the Hittite Empire.
Oh.
And it was actually a really interesting thing because I think he didn't win necessarily, but he came back to Egypt and he made these relief carvings, and typically in the Egyptian pharaohs would have things carved out of the rock, so they would be, you would like feel the bumps. But Ramses wanted to prevent people in later dynasties from carving over his carvings, so he carved into the rocks when he did all of his carvings, so it was like relief based. So that's why we have so many extant images of his stuff. But apparently he didn't actually win against the Hittites, but he came back to Egypt and put up thousands of carvings showing that he had won. And basically creating this giant political propaganda machine when he was older because he couldn't go out to war and fight battles when he was 80.
See, now I'm kind of glad I pulled up the description, like the actual wiki summary here, because this is not something I would have caught with my notes, by the way. That particular thing here. That probably would have been something I skimmed over.
Yeah, the thing about the Hittites. Although it's interesting, it's highlighted blue. Makes me wonder if there's like an actual thing about Hittites in Fate. Or is it just going to take you to Wikipedia?
Wikipedia.
It just takes you to Wikipedia. Okay, that makes sense. Also,
this is phantasm. His second noble phantasm, the Mesekhetet. Whatever. How do you pronounce that?
Mesekhetet.
So, I actually haven't seen this, and I don't know that I have... Well, actually, I do have it. Let me just pull it up here. I haven't... Like, I know what this is, but I haven't gotten a really good look at it. Oh, no, apparently I don't have a view of this. So this thing is a...
Is it a boat?
Yes, this is why he's in the Rider class.
Oh, okay, so this is the Mesek is actually the boat of the sun that Osiris rides across the skies, called the Boat of a Million Years. But specifically, this is the vessel used during the night journey, when he travels through the land of the dead, and passes through the 12 protective deities.
In Fate, it's pretty much always flying above him, although I think he can get on it. And the way he uses it is he fires lasers from it down onto his enemies below.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, so Ra, the sun god and basically the head of the pantheon, would ride this boat through the underworld at night, and he would have to fight the destructive capabilities of 12 protective deities across the 12 hours of the night to turn it into the day boat that he would sail across the sky with the sun, like holding the sun up. Man, they went hard on the history here. I love this.
And then this is the last one, the Sphinx of Name.
Abu el-Hol.
This one, actually, I do have an image for, as it does appear in some of his attacks. Effectively, he summons this thing, which is capable of fucking shit up.
Yeah. So that is the Great Sphinx of Cairo. That is by the pyramids. Also known as the Great Sphinx of Giza, Father of Terror, Horus of the Horizon. Like, that is the Sphinx. The one you think of without the nose that Napoleon excavated from the sands on his first journeys in Egypt. Old Napoleon, not new Napoleon.
It's apparently fire-based in Fate. They list it here, but I haven't seen this because this is in the light novel. It can melt it melts anything that touches, basically.
I'm not surprised, because it's generally associated with Horus as a god, and Horus is kind of like a more warlike deity. I'm not surprised. Not warlike per se, but he's certainly not a pacifist deity, since, he takes Set's head in a lot of stories.
And I was kind of wrong about there being no alternate versions. There is technically one that we barely see because it's an alternate version in a story that was never written.
Okay.
Remember so the novel he comes from is a prequel to a story that doesn't exist. Because that story that doesn't exist is the original Fate Stay Night, pre it being turned into an eroge, the one with male Arthur and female main character instead of Shiro.
So, like, the prototype that was
That's
then
why it's called Fate
horny.
Prototype.
Oh, that was then turned horny. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And in it, he would have... Do you know how Saber got turned into Saber Alter? And you've seen it a few times.
Oh, so he would have been...
He would have had
Ozymandias
something
Alter.
like that, yeah.
Oh, man, now I wish I could see that. That would be so cool.
Trust me, a lot of the Fate fan base wishes they can see whatever the fuck this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we only have a collection of notes as to what this was.
The altars are so cool, honestly. That's some bullshit.
But unfortunately, there are no designs for it.
Hey, Hikaru Sakurai is godlike. I see that comment, favorite character due to her love of Egyptian historical figures. Fuck yes, this is a person I can get on with.
That would be the author of the light novel.
Yeah, I can get on with this person. For those of you who don't know, I am studying to be, potentially, an Egyptologist specifically. So, like... Also, protection from the sun god, that meshes with the boat of Ra. So is the whole imperial privilege thing. And divinity. Actually, in this context, this is one of the few instances where divinity actually makes 100% sense to me, because the pharaohs were god kings. So I'm just like, yes, divinity.
I don't normally spend any time on this section. I figured I'd scroll through it because you're going to catch things I would never catch in this.
I just, pharaoh literally means god king.
Yeah.
Like, they were thought of as, like, they were gods living on Earth.
Well, usually, unless it's a gag, Fate has some kind of justification as to why divinity is there. Whether they just be straight up a demigod, descendant, or a version of a god, like God on Earth.
Yeah.
Or there's one character who people say was if like there's anecdotes of them being godlike for their achievement, they'll get divinity as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, hey, charisma makes sense too. I mean, yeah, see, there's that brought prosperity to Egypt by conquering Palestine and Nubia. Yeah, all those wars he fought, when he was young and when he wasn't young. Ramesses the Great also is the one who put up the majority of monuments and temples in the south of Egypt. In fact, I think there's a temple that you might have actually heard of that he built, because it is very, very famous. Mostly for the circumstances around it and what's had to happen to it recently. So I'm just gonna... Okay, so, you've probably heard of this before, but this is the temple at Abu Simbel. It's very famous because it's that huge one that was like basically carved into the rocks, right? With images of him and his children at his feet. And it's very famous in the archaeological community because there was a dam built on the Nile River, and the dam actually threatened to flood it because the way of the dam was being constructed. So the entire temple was cut apart, disassembled, and moved upriver away from where the dam would flood it. The entire temple built into the rock face was moved, relocated in the 60s because of the Aswan High Dam.
Moving something carved into a rock face does not sound easy.
Right? Like, this is not just like, oh, we'll move it to protect it. No.
This is like take Bikini Bottom and push it somewhere else kind of ridiculousness.
This is exactly what that is. Like, this is, we'll take the thing and move it over there. It's bullshit. But yes, Abu Simbel. Very famous. Very, very famous.
So, as far as how he... Let me throw us on to this. As far as how he behaves, you might be able to tell from his design.
He looks very conceited.
He is. In fact, he's very similar to Gilgamesh in that, right? But also not.
He's more cooperative, I assume.
A fair bit more and a lot... He's simultaneously conceited and high-strung, but egotistical while also not being as egotistical as Gilgamesh.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Gilgamesh is kind of a special case because we don't know if Gilgamesh existed, like, historically, but we know the story of Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh is written to be a character who needs Enkidu to come and solve his conceitedness and stuff. But Ramses II was an actual person, a pharaoh who lived. Like, he lived a long time in his life. If he didn't have some degree of ability to work with others and tolerate others, he'd be a pretty shitty pharaoh. I mean, he succeeded in doing all of these amazing things, really, for someone who was living in, the 13th century BCE, like... Shit went down. I mean, he lived to be 90, knick-knack. Like, this man was old.
Yeah.
You learn a little over the years, You learn.
That said, I think Fate tried to place some parallels between Enkidu and Gilgamesh with him and Moses. Because there's a lot of, this is a man I respected kind of things going on with both those relationships. To the point where, and I had it on screen here earlier, you'd even, like, Ozymandias would even recognize Moses as someone that could have been Pharaoh if it weren't because he was Moses.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, you think of the Prince of Egypt movie, where Moses and Ramses are raised as brothers. And then, so Ramses is chosen to be the crown prince, and Moses ends up having his existential crisis and running off. Great movie, by the way. Fantastic soundtrack. Not accurate at all, but great movie. But yeah, honestly, I feel like, people who have a historical grounding or have a lot more characterization have to be more dimensional than Gilgamesh, who's just kind of an arrogant sod for the majority of
his life.
Yeah, until somebody comes along and tempers him, and he, like, needs another person to teach him to
That said, Ozymandias and Gilgamesh get along swimmingly.
Honestly, I could see that. They are basically the same level of epic historically. Like, there is not another Egyptian pharaoh who is as awesome as Ozymandias. The only person who even comes close is Hatshepsut, in my opinion. And the only reason that Hatshepsut comes close is because Hatshepsut also, while protecting her title as essentially pharaoh in the name of her son, husband, and father, all of which she reigned with, she was an avid person who believed in not necessarily constant warfare, but making overtures to other nations and establishing trade connections while sending her son off to war, hoping that he would be killed so she wouldn't have to worry about him having power. Who also reigned for quite a long time and held a massive amount of power whilst greatly expanding the Egyptian empire. I guess the only other person comparable in my mind in terms of like being a really good ruler would be Wu Zetian. Because Wu Zetian also has a thing going on where, like, people vilify her like they do Hatshepsut, but in reality, she did reign during a period of economic prosperity. Who dis?
No, it's Nefertiti again.
Oh, yes.
Just
that's adorable.
another image of her. Get one more image of Moses up since we have actual
She's
artwork
adorable.
of them. They're not confirmed servants, but we have artwork of them.
See, Nefertiti's interesting, right? Like, even outside of the context with Ramses, because Nefertiti has... There are a lot of different theories about, like, what happened with her life, especially what happened because she kind of disappears when Akhenaten dies, but we don't necessarily have a death record of her, but we do have this person who appeared as the head advisor to her son,
Sorry,
Tutankhamun.
I misspoke. Not Nefertiti, Nefertari.
Oh, well, Nefertari's a different character.
Yeah, no wonder. I
In Egyptian.
misread that.
Yeah, because I think in that case, I mean, that may be one of the many wives of...
Oh. Let me... I think we actually do have a description of... Do we? I think... Yes. This is Ozymandias' impression of Nefertari. In existence I love and hold supreme even more than myself. I had once had a numerous amount of wives, but now Nefertari is by my side.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet. I'll do a quick check right now.
That's one of the ones that actually could have existed. I was like, am I getting something wrong here? I don't
mean,
think that seems like a little bit of an oversight for Fate if it did. No, I misread it because me.
I mean, there were many wives, obviously, of
Yeah.
Ramses. He did have 8 royal wives. One is Nefertari. Yeah. So there's Nefertari, Isnofret, Bint Anath, Arya Tamun, Nebetawe, Henutmire, and Maathome Ferure. But yes, Nefertari is one of his principal royal wives. Which makes it very interesting because I do actually know Nefertari as a female queen of Egypt. She is one of the more famous ones outside of Cleopatra, Nefertiti, and Hatshepsut. She is actually quite up there because she was probably his first royal wife. And I believe she was also the mother of his first male heir ever from any of his wives. And I think... I mean, she obviously died before he did, but I think her daughter then married him. That happened a lot, unfortunately, and became one of his other royal wives. But we don't think
We
about
ignore that.
Yeah, we don't think about that. But yeah, actually,
Just like you ignore the fact that I made that mistake earlier. Please and thank you, audience.
it's okay. I mixed up Amenhotep III and Ramses the Great in the timeline. There's like a 500-year difference, but they're in the same. Well, it's either a 500-year difference, or it's a 2,500-year difference. Honestly, I could be off by a very large factor or a very small factor.
Of course, I could always just blame the Fate localization team because I only know by heart what I've read, and I only read what I can get officially localized usually.
That's fair, and there's a decent chance at some point they did like accidentally change the translation or something got fucked up, especially if you were reading when it wasn't official.
Yeah, I haven't read that light novel actually at all, so.
Oh, interesting.
Otherwise, I probably would have got it right the first time.
Let's see if Sekhie was off by a factor of 500 or 2,500. Nefertiti. Formal, royal, great wife. Haha! 500. I was only off by 500, about 1 or 2 dynasties, maybe 3. So I was closer than I thought. I was worried it was going to be a BC AD kind of thing, but no. So I was off by a couple hundred years with the descendancy, but you said Nefertiti, and because I was like, is it even close? It could be close, because I remember a similar name in the succession, but I was thinking of Nefertari.
So the Fate writers know they're doing a little bit more than Knick-Knack does, apparently.
Fun fact, you haven't met them yet in One Piece, and we probably won't get to it, but the royal family of Alabasta, the desert Egypt coded kingdom, is their last name is Nefertari.
Oh.
And the princess's name is Nefertari Vivi. Which is pretty interesting, in my opinion.
All right. I mean, should we start just telling them what we're doing next, since we're starting to have more of a plan with these? Especially because this one's pretty set in stone.
Yeah. So we are starting to plan these a little bit more. We do have scheduled ones going up during certain months with themes. Ozymandias is just a kind of a free week for us. I really like him, and so Knick-Knack thought we'd get to him before I spoiled more.
Being fair, like, finding out about these two, Moses and Nefertari, I actually didn't know about them until I started doing the research on Ozymandias. Like, I knew about them, I didn't know they were actually in Fate already.
Yeah.
Like, if they became servants, that's probably their designs.
Yeah, because they wouldn't change them too much.
That said, we do get the occasional design change in Fate. Like,
Fair.
Like, they've changed both Theon Kumail's design, so you get to see two different versions of him when we do him eventually. As well as Lancelot has had his design changed now.
Oh. Well, that's interesting.
So, yeah. But that's beside the point. So, next time, in honor of her recent release as Santa, we'll be doing Florence Nightingale. So, yeah. She should already be out as the Santa version by the time this goes up, I think. So, hey, we'll see you then, I guess.
Yeah, Florence Nightingale. See ya.
Bye, folks.